Is there a relationship between Psyops and spiritual practice? This is the question we'll be looking at today. Psyops is psychological operations. Is there a hidden war on your mind? Are your perceptions being engineered? And can spiritual practice aid in ascertaining sovereign truth? We can break this into two categories. We have influence of the internal environment, right? So this would be the war we wage upon ourselves, the perceptions as we engineer them ourselves based off our habits, based off our history of our life. And of course, if we have the internal environment, we have the external environment. And these two are always in a responsive interplay with each other. Because of this, when we take care of the internal environment, the external takes care of itself. What this means is that in the beginning foundational stages of any spiritual training, a big emphasis is placed on freeing ourselves from our internal habits, from our habits of perception, our habits of meaning, our habits of view, our habits of what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is false, and our habits of how we relate to the world, right? These are all our habits of meaning that we had an initial experience with way back, and then from that particular scarring, whether positive or negative, all future experience adds more and more energy to that particular blockage of that scarring, and that builds a view. It builds very, very deep intrinsic habits of meaning in relation to the world around us. So as we start to take care of the internal environment and free ourselves from ourselves, on a little bit of a hill here, as we start to free ourselves from ourselves, it makes it very difficult for the external environment to usurp ourselves or to co-opt our own identity for other purposes. Just as we are not or are lessening our own ability to co-opt the identity for whatever story we think we need to carry out of our own. This is a major part of spiritual practice. Now, for this Psyops chat, we'll be borrowing a little bit from a popular man on the internet who's very up on his hypnosis and very up on his understanding of engineering of environmental frameworks. That is Chase Hughes. So he has something he calls his FATE principle. It's an acronym, and this is 4 key components essentially that help aid in robbing someone of sovereignty, and that is FATE: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. So you end up stealing focus or having your focus stolen. And when we look at the acronym of FATE, it's, fate, destiny. This is very important because it's a smart one, because what is the story of your, that your karmic stream is operating in this moment, and can we free ourselves from that? And from, the mid-level Hermetic practices and spiritual work, this would be to the Saturnian type of influence, and what the destiny, the fate, the karmic unfolding, the karmic accounting that's taking place. How is harmony swinging into harmony? And that swing is what we are carrying out as we walk through life. Now, is that greater purpose being co-opted? So, focus. This is really, really important. When we are focusing and our perceptions are being pulled at all the time, our attention is being pulled at, Well, we've mentioned many times on this podcast that energy goes where attention flows. Now, if attention is being pulled into many different arenas constantly all the time, how is it ever going to consolidate and build on any one thing? How is it going to have enough energy to make progress on the spiritual path? Which it takes a lot of focus and a lot of energy to really work through all this stuff, to throw off the shackles of our own nonsense. We need that attention. So if your focus is being hijacked, we have definitely a little bit of an issue that we need to work at just dealing with when it comes to ourselves. Of course, there is authority, and that would be the second one, the FA for authority. And when we are around authority figures, let's say even from the standpoint of teacher and student, the student is giving over an aspect of their own protective chi. You're opening the matrices, right? When you close the matrices, that is an attempt to consolidate the protective energy, and it's like your internal armor, right? Everything has come into alignment, and the matrices are consolidated with that alignment and are closing to external influences. And this is the opposite of what happens when we are around authority figures. When, say, we are a student around a teacher, we want to open ourselves so that we can receive as much of the transmission as possible. But this can be very easily manipulated, as we've discussed before. And when we are open, we are prone to change. That is why for spiritual practice, we want to have the ability to open the matrices and open ourselves up to higher sources of inspiration and of spiritual refinement. And then we want the ability to consolidate the matrices within that higher spiritual refinement, so that we can have some play in the matrices and their levels of pulling together and opening. So authority will force the matrices open, and this is based off our subconscious habits of doing what we are told, right? And then your matrices end up closing or consolidating around information being given to you by another person or a group of people or a particular ideology or idea, whatever it might be. So focus, authority, tribe. From the tribal standpoint, this goes to the acceptance thing, looking for acceptance or rejection from it's the same thing we do, with our thoughts and stuff. So this is from the environment. You want to be accepted by a tribe, this is going to be an issue. So are you free from that aspect of yourself? If not, then you're going to run into some major potential issues when it comes to being pulled into different stories. The story of tribe is also the story of othering, a story of separation, and from that we get a lot of atrocity that occurs. What tribe are you being encouraged to be a part of and to be brought into? Well, this is the way we think, this is the way we speak. We don't use these words. If you go to any cult, any commune, any cult, and I have some enjoyment in going to these communities and just experiencing what they're offering. It's very interesting to just have a dinner, spend an evening, and just make sure you're on the safe side of your own sovereignty before you do this. And you can really experience what it is that is there. And you can see from a psychological perspective, from a recruiting perspective, how it's done so well. And you know, there is value to the people that is being offered. There are some good things, but also some, you know, a lot of not so good things. But tribe is a very, very big one. So what are you being encouraged to connect with and to identify with? If you, again, are free from your own internal identity environment, or relatively free, it will make it very, very difficult for that thing that isn't there, that doesn't exist, to be pulled into the story of tribe, right? Now, tribe is being elevated very often these days as it's what we're missing in society. We used to be tribal. And is there truth to this? Absolutely. But what is the mechanism of the tribe? What is the purpose of the tribe that you are being, recruited into? Whether it is a cult or a commune, or whether that tribe is an ideological, we think this is a polarity of a political situation that is occurring, what tribe do you take part in? And tribe almost always comes down to, I think I'm a good person, therefore I think this. Good people, we think this. We are better, we think this. Other people are not as good people, they think this. Is this in your lexicon of perception and thought? And if it's playing itself out, you want to have a look at this. And of course, the E is to emotion, and we will get into this more. I think this will be a series we'll do as things go on. Spiritual practices offer tools to help us be free from ourselves. As we mentioned, freedom from ourselves helps us to be free from external influence as well. So in the Initiation to Hermetics text of Franz Barden, as an example, there's numerous training and numerous traditions that is very potent. In this tradition, and in, say, the tarot, you have the card of the magician. And Franz Barden's Initiation into Hermetics is to the magician card of the tarot. And the magician is master of the elements. Master of earth, water, fire, air, and the akasha. Now, to the beginner, mastery means control of. And this is, of course, a place that many of us need to start. So to the beginner, mastery means control of the elements. It is very difficult to be free from something that we don't have agency over. So the more advanced adept reframes mastery of the elements as freedom from the elements, meaning choiceful play with the elements from a place of union and recognition that the elements are you. You are the elements. You are the trees and the mountain and the water and the air. Every breath you take, you are the air, literally every breath you take. Every bite that you eat, you are imbibing the earth. You are taking in and consuming sunlight with every bite of food that you eat. Every drink of water, everything you're doing is an elemental play. So as you begin to recognize this through practice, you become free from control, being controlled by being controlled by the elements. So strengthening our relationship with the elements and the capacity that the astral body has to both experience and exist within each of the elements in high concentration, as well as to build and then also to essentially off-gas that high concentration, to harmonize the elements. The more aware we are of the elements, the more aware we are of these elements at play around us, and the more free we are from being brought into whatever little framework of the elements might be being imposed on us from whatever source that might be. The mental attributes of will, discernment, emotion, or feeling, and consciousness are in a harmonious dance. Because of this, our will is not being pulled apart by the distractions around us. Our discernment is not being co-opted by the repetitive messages that might be everywhere, coming from within or coming from outside us. Our feeling and emotion, that cohesiveness, that thing that sparks up and attaches to novelty, we are, again, free within our control, or we are free from the identity latching into these and onto these. And the consciousness aspect that binds the will, that binds the discernment, that binds the emotion, this is not bound to identity. It is bound to a greater fractal of consciousness and evolution. Because of this, these can dance in harmony. And the basics of the training is where this all comes from. As we said, the matrices are functional. They're able to open and close within our perceptual agency. They're able to become softer and looser so that we can engage with the spiritual past and defabricate all our own nonsense that we bound to. And then they're able to consolidate again under the purview of higher inspiration. The astral body is relatively clear from all our soul mirror work and balanced. Once again, those parts of us that might be easily pulled at to jump into and onto a cause, we have done the work so that these are less manipulatable. An emanation with free-flowing harmony of the elements is largely immune to the stagnation of environmental influence. Environmental influence pulls at or pressurizes stagnation, internally or externally. The less there is of that in the emanation, if it's again free-flowing and harmonious, the more freedom there is. Physically, astrally, mentally, and of course both internally and externally. That's where that freedom exists, in all of it. So in the practice, there are a number of things that we can do to help enhance this. How can exercises of the introductory practices offer an antidote to this? Well, you start with mental training. The basics of watching the thoughts come into being and fall away, recognizing that what we are thinking might not be of our identity. It is a layer of stuff that is going on, but it is not everything. And as we begin to become aware of the thoughts, we begin to see and perceive how different circumstances can give rise to many, many different thought forms coming into being and falling away. As you're able to watch the stream of particular thought forms that are taking place over a greater arc of time, and this happens as you begin to release time in the training, you're able to acknowledge and perceive how cause and effect take place over greater and greater and greater arcs of time. This is very important and will help us to find freedom from internal and external belief and influence. The ability to focus, basic focusing, just take one thing, focus on it. Can you own your concentration? Or is your concentration owned by your own wandering of mind? And what wandering and perturbations of mind that are coming in from the environment, how is this operating within you? If your focus is not pure, in between all the distractions, what is your focus being brought to? And it doesn't take much, just a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit of consolidated focus here, and in between that, distraction, so that we can't have too much energy to deal with what's been brought into greater attention just for brief moments on a repetitive basis over greater arcs of time, once again. You have energy awareness, and this is, let's say, basic vital energy awareness. More or less vitality. What happens to your energy, to your vitality within certain paradigms of experience. When your attention is being robbed from you, your energy is being robbed from you, what's happening? Now, when that attention is being consolidated into different aspects, different moments, different views, whatever it might be, for that brief moment when distraction fades, what is that energy pouring into? Very, very important. Elemental familiarity and strength. Absolutely crucial. So that if you are having, say, anger, that righteous anger being offered to you, or a depression, there's no point being offered to you, a negative earth element, a negative fire element, a negative water element, whatever this might be, a negative air element in the anxieties, the fears as those play through the elements. It's all, of course, cycling through and rolling through each and every one of these. If you have strength in that, you can handle more of that element at play long enough that you can tweak the negativity into a recognition of the freedom within that element, and then you're able to work within that element as undifferentiated elemental substance, as opposed to the fire element meaning in its little box of, passion or anger, or the water element in its negative little box of melancholy, whatever it is that might be being presented. So elemental familiarity, so you can recognize what's at play, and strength, so you can deal with it, and then of course the skill to free yourself from the offered impingements or little containers of what that element in your experience right now might mean. So of course, the soul mirror work, as we mentioned, the deep introspection, this is always key, absolutely key. Why am I thinking this right now? Why am I feeling this right now? What does it mean? Is it me? What is me? What is consciousness? These are questions that, take you a fair ways on the path. And we want to consider these. Now, how does this effectively function in the hidden war on mind or on our attention? These exercises and this training, well, it frees us from identity. And it is the identity that the story of fate, back to our acronym from earlier, it is the identity that the story of focus, authority, tribe, and emotion tries to hijack. And again, this can be coming from the internal environment as well as the external environment. Once the identity has been captured, internally or externally, our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, our feelings are acting out a story. We cannot think clearly, we cannot feel clearly, we cannot act clearly. So what story are you living in? What story are you thinking in? Are you feeling in? What story are you acting in? Whose story is that? Is it yours? Is it your histories? Is it within the purview of an identity? Is it someone else's identity? Is it a group identity? Is it an ideological identity? Is it a religious identity, a group cult? What is the story you are living in? Now, if identification with self is transcended, who or what is left for the identity to engage with? Now, if identification with self has been worked on a lot, or is at least to some degree transcended, who or what is left to identify with view, to identify with internal and external environment and events in cause? What identity is left to give meaning, to impose meaning, to latch on to story, to latch on to group view, of tribe, of right and wrong, of polarization over whatever the topic might be, instead of looking at the topic and unwinding effects across time with an open mind and correlatory observation without imposing absolutes. Freedom from the identity is at the core of spiritual practice, and as such can be a massive aid in allowing us to perceive what is going on around us and within us with more clarity, with greater insight, and of course with actual freedom, which has nothing to do with latching on to one side of a pole or another. Very, very important that we look at this. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you're feeling inspired to take the next step with your training, I'd love to see you out at a retreat. These are pretty intense events. There's a lot of deep transformation, connection, transmission, nature connection, everything at work here. It's steeped in a lot of energy. I'd love to see you out at one of those. You can also become a member on the website, and here there's exclusive access to the courses in both Tai Chi and the Qigong, Hermetic Alchemy and Meditation program. Along with this, you get ongoing support with access to the Zenden, which is a Q&A video reference library. And this is there to aid in the clarity and confidence as you move along the path. So any questions you have, shoot me a note and I throw up video answers there. Okay, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for your time. Please share, subscribe, and of course, have fun. Practice. Bye.